So we're back with the finals of the Big Thursday Modern at Magic Corner Vienna. And here are your hosts, Michi.
And Walter.
Yeah, and we're going to present you here a match between Grixis Shadow on the left and Burn on the right.
Yeah, well, I for myself, I've played Grixis Shadow quite a lot. To be honest, not to quite some excess. But in this matchup, typically the issue for the Grixis Death Shadow player is how much life does he want to spend on his own, and how much life can he actually spend on his own before the burn opponent burns him out.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not a big expert on Grixis Death Shadow, but my understanding from just watching this matchup several times was that the Grixis Shadow player is mostly better off with just not dealing too much damage to themselves and more often just looking at using the burn player's damage as an advantage. Is that right? Does that connect with your own experience?
Yes, this connects perfectly well with my own experience, but the issue here is that sometimes you can be forced to deal yourself damage to handle board situations, which will deal you just more damage. But all in all, your life total actually can go down quite easily. The dangerous thing for the burn player is if he can bring you down to some life and you can go in with some threats like Death Shadow or Grommack Angler, that you can raise him on this side. So he has to wait after some damage to kind of kill you in more or less one or two turns.
So when exactly is the Grixis Death Shadow player supposed to turn the corner from playing the control role to swinging and just starting to finish the game as quickly as possible?
I think as soon as he is controlling the board and has some backup, and of course, as soon as he can deploy threats.
Sure, so it's mostly that because with the Shadow, because you need to be at lower than 13 life when you deploy it, you will not deploy it in the first few turns of the game in this matchup that often.
Yes, because the burn player can easily wait till he can play several burn spells in a round and like end of turn burn, 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 and then in his turn burn, burn, burn. So if you as a Grixis Shadow player want to be more aggressive, you have to use your own life loss to start threatening your opponent. Another thing which can happen is that you kind of quickly fill your graveyard and play Grommack Angler and Tassigur and start attacking.
So what about the interaction between Eidolon of the Great Rever and the Death Threats? How often does it happen that you're like, yay, I'm landing my Death Threat, it does not trigger the Eidolon?
This depends on the draw of the burn player. Because if he can deploy early threats and the Eidolon with backup burn spell, Tassigur and Grommack might not be fast enough to kill him off.
Because you still take 2 of every single burn spell you're going to cast,
yes,
even if you have one big creature on the board.
This is true. But the other thing is, you have to play a lot of 1 mana spells to go there. So if the Eidolon is deployed quite early, you will still get quite some damage out of it. So you might have to handle it on side with something like a Fatal Push or a Lightning Bolt.
So here it seems like we see the burn player taking a mulligan, while the Grixis Shadow player seems to have kept his hand.
Yes, looks like it. What do you think the burn player wants to have in his hand against Grixis Death Shadow? Do you have any ideas? Or
So with the burn deck being extremely redundant, I can tell you what you don't want to have. What you don't want to have are the searing effects. They're just not that good in this matchup because the only creatures they can realistically kill are the Snapcasters. Mm-hmm. What you do want to have are cards that make a difference. You want to have a turn 1 Goblin Guide under the condition that your opponent doesn't have the turn 1 push, in my opinion, but it's still something that can do more than the average. The average is 3 damage with a card in whatever way for whatever mana cost spent, but I think you need to be able to do better with the burn deck than that sometimes.
So the burn player played Arid Mass on his first turn and does nothing with it. because of the things I just mentioned.
And here we see...
And yes, here we see Inquisition of Kozilek, and the burn player is thinking if he should cast something in response, but no, it decides not to do so, and just wait for the Death Shadow player to reduce his own life with his own cards.
Yeah, we're back to what you were talking about before here, Michi. The thing is that the Death Shadow player doesn't shock himself to get close to the casting. Death Shadow here, you just need to shock yourself to cast spells, to actually be able to cast spells here. So you already started 18 life just to cast your Inquisition.
Yes, and I think a perfect draw from the burn player's side here would be the Eidolon, which you mentioned before. Yeah, because you can see a Dassigur in the hand of the Grixis Death Shadow player, but only one card in the graveyard. So he would need quite some cards to fill up his graveyard, which would lead to quite some damage from the Eidolon.
Yeah, I mean, we see the basic island, which can be a bit of an advantage because it's one of the few ways the Death Shadow deck can actually produce mana without taking damage. And we see a failed push, and I think a Serum Visions was drawn for the turn will be cast right now.
And here it goes with the Serum Visions. Opponent Grixis Death Shadow player draws a card and scries.
Okay. With Steam Vents on top, I think he was missing red mana and a copy of Death Shadow. What do you think about this scry?
I think here it's quite okay. I'm not quite sure if he already wants to have a Death Shadow in hand because currently it's a dead card.
So he kept one card on top, put one on the bottom. So you reckon he probably kept the Steam Vents on top to get access to red mana and bottomed Death Shadow for the time being because he already has a potent threat in hand?
I actually say maybe he kept the Death Shadow on top because as you can see right now he has a blue delta in hand, so he can search for red mana, and Death Shadow is a fast clock which he needs.
So you think he wants to draw the Death Shadow and then use the delta to shuffle away the second card, which was the Steam Vents, because he's going to search for maybe even the Steam Vents?
The Steam Vents was put on bottom of the library. So just one.
Okay. So he can shuffle at his own leisure with this polluted delta.
Yes.
Okay.
And he already has 4 cards in his graveyard. And on the next turn, he will have 3 lands.
Yeah, and from the vampire side, we just see him pass off the turn here. So no spell cast and a few cards left in hand.
Yes, because he doesn't want his opponent to deploy Death Shadows early before he can kill him off. But as we see, the Grixis Death Shadow player has still other options available because he can now fetch, for example, for just a black mana, or as we see here, for
he's
red and a black source. And now he has 4 cards in graveyard, and, well, you know what this means?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't need to have the Black Crypt untapped here because the 2 mana from the untapped lands plus the 4 cards in the graveyard exactly adds up to Tassiger, which is pretty great. But we also get another cantrip cast here, which also adds up to Tassiger, so nice. Even better. It's basically free. This spell doesn't cost mana in the equation for the Grixis Death Shadow player.
No, but what you saw here, you saw the famous counterspell Stubborn Denial from Grixis Death Shadow, and with 1 mana left, you will go Tassigur with next turn having up 1 mana, counter basically everything except creatures from the opponent.
Yeah, as this is game 1, he can safely tap out here and not leave the Stubborn Denial open because it would take 2 burn spells to get rid of this Tassiger. There's no better answers to this kind of threat out of the Grixis Death Shadow deck in a burn deck game 1, so you're happy with that. If you get 2 bolts traded for your Tassiger, you're happy with that.
Otherwise, it would be perfect for his opponent to just go for the Tassiger and not his life total, because you see in his hand another Serum Visions, and you see Death Shadow and
which would just be
the Stubborn Denial.
At this point,
yeah, just a 1/1, but already with counter backup and with more damage to come.
And the Grixis Death Shadow player is starting on the Serum Visions here. He has a scry. We can see 1 copy of Inquisition of Kozilek and a different card. Will be interesting to see what he gets to keep on top, or if he's going to bottom both.
Yeah, maybe he's bottoming both there because he wants to apply more pressure to the board.
Which cards is the Grixis Death Shadow player actively looking at this situation?
I think either more disruption or more aggressive cards, and disruption we would see here. And as you can see, the Inquisition of Kozilek stays on top to save his life total from burn spells.
Because here, the burn player is still 3 cards in hand, because in this situation from a mid-range deck, it's often a bit annoying to keep a discard spell on top if you think that your opponent might just be able, your burn opponent might just be able to throw the last spell that you face and then only reveal lands. But with the amount of cards the burn player has here, I think that's a reasonable keep on top.
So the Grixis Death Shadow player is still thinking, is he cycling? Oh, yes, he's cycling it. So he's down to 10, trying
Yeah,
card.
the Street Wraith goes to the graveyard down to 10, getting a fresh card. Street Wraith Heartcast is not that great in this matchup. Swamp Walk not that important. And 10 lives still seems like a reasonable thing. Because here, again, we see the dance. The dance with the Death Shadow.
And we see Inquisition of Kozilek. So let's see what the burn player has in hand. Or will he respond to the Inquisition with another burn spell?
If I had a Boros Charm, I would probably respond with that, simply because it has a better rate than the other burn spells in terms of damage output, sorry. And yeah, but we just see a Skullcrag, a Lava Spike, and a land here, and responding with the Skullcrag just means that your Lava Spike would still get taken. So this is kind of not an ideal situation for the burn player.
No, it's not. So burn player just has 3 more damage in hand, while the Grixis Death Shadow guy has 10 life. So this is really not the situation you want to be in as the burn player.
And especially at this point, we have a 3/3 Death Shadow, a 4/5 Tasiku, so any additional source of damage to the Grixis Death Shadow player, whether it be damage inflicted by the burn player or by himself, means there is a straight 2-turn clock. It's gonna close fast.
But just one question, did the Grixis Death Shadow player forget his land drop? I think so.
Does he have another land in hand?
I'm not quite sure. May have seen one. Or the last card in his hand. Oh, okay. Yes, this is a land, or yes.
It's Blood Crypt. Why didn't he play the Blood Crypt tapped is a good question. One answer might be that he actually wants to keep the potential damage in hand. Simply, he might have the situation where the 2 damage would shorten the clock with the Death Shadow with 1 turn. Realistically, this could only happen if the Tarmogoyf died, but it might be a backup that he wanted to, like you can see here. He wasn't sure if he wanted to shock the turn before, and now he wants to shock.
But as he has seen his hand, he could have played the Inquisition of Kozilek and having still mana open for Stubborn Denial to counter another damage spell from his opponent.
Yeah, he actively wants to deal the 2 extra damage with the Death Shadow here, so that the Death Shadow by itself is lethal next turn. It's not lethal itself next turn, but it would be with any additional source of damage here.
Yes, and as you could see here, the burn player scoops it up because no answers in hand. So the first round goes to Grixis Death Shadow, and as we can see here, Grixis Death Shadow is looking at Collective Brutality for life gain and Stubborn Denial for more counter magic against the burn player.
Collective Brutality is huge in this matchup. It's so good. It's got 3 modes, and every single mode is amazing against burn. You like to gain life, you like to kill their creatures, and you like to strip burn spells from the hand. And with the Grixis Death Shadow deck, you always have some clunky cards you can discard as well sometimes. And it's tempo efficient. Collective Brutality is tempo efficient. You're down on cards, but you get 3 effects that you can get 3 effects that will cost a lot more than 2 mana from 2 mana, because the additional cost you pay is not in mana. So, Mihi, what do you think the burn player can do here in terms of sideboarding?
Obviously, Path to Exile to kill the big creatures instantly while burning down the opponent. Another option, as we have seen the burn player before, is of course Ensnaring Bridge.
What do you think of Deflecting Palm?
Yes, Deflecting Palm is actually amazing in this matchup. So the burn player has quite some option there, and he has to choose wisely. To not
over sideboard?
Yes, not to over sideboard.
Because you still, with the burn deck, you always want to still retain the ability to just deal a ton of damage. What is interesting here too is what comes out of the burn deck. Do you have any ideas here? Which cards are not as effective in the Grixis Death Shadow matchup from the burn main deck?
Yeah, well, the searing effect is most likely not that good there because most of the time it will not kill a creature.
Exactly, because the only targets relevant for that are the Snapcaster Mages, any Searing Blazes can come out, and what's really interesting here as well is whether the bandit will bring in those bridges, like you said before, because there is Korrigan's Command, that's a magic card.
Yes, that's quite a good magic card, which is usually played by Grixis Death Shadows players.
And it means that there's a main deck answer. So, going a step back, do you keep all your Korrigan's commands in as the Grixis Death Shadow players post sideboard in the burn match?
It depends how many cards I have to sideboard, because usually I want to take out some spells which will cost a lot of life loss to me, like Street Grave, which we have actually seen here being sideboarded out by the Grixis Death Shadow player.
So what you're saying is that Korrigan's Command is not the best card in this matchup, it's not a great card in this matchup, but you have a lot of worse cards that you actively want to take out of your deck?
Yes, depends, for example, on how many Stubborn Denial, Collective Brutalities are in the sideboard. Another card which is not that amazing in this matchup is, for example, Thoughtseize, because
it just costs 2 life.
It costs 2 life, and if you want to play it on turn 1, best way would be to have the most likely just one Black Swamp which is played. Or usually you have like Watery Grave, pay 2 life, pay Thoughtseize, lose another 2 life.
Yeah, the Grixis Death Shadow deck usually only plays 1 swamp and 1 island, so only 2 basics, and then they play 12 fetch lands and they round it out with a variety of the Grixis colored shocks. So it's actually not that likely to be able to just fetch for an untapped basic on turn 1 all the time.
If I would say it's more likely to fetch for an island than for a swamp because
of the cantrips.
Yes, because of the cantrips and because of the counter magic you have.
So, which effect is better against burn from Grixis Death Shadow? Inquisition or the counter spell, the Stubborn Denial? The proactive or the reactive approach?
Well, it depends, because Inquisition can only be deployed with no loss of life later in the game, as would be counter magic. But in the beginning, you don't want to lose a lot of life, so you want to wait a little bit. Usually the burn player waits a little bit too for 1 or 2 more big swings, and yeah.
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is a mulligan from the burn player this time again. So we saw mulligan before in the game, didn't bode well for the result. So what do you make of that, with the burn player going to 6 again?
Yeah, because the burn player now is on the play. He has, of course, 1 card less available. And the Grixis Death Shadow player just has to play less disruption to stay alive and to take home this game.
So again, what does the burn player wish to see here on his Multi 6? What are the cards that are important here to have in your opening hand on the Multi 6?
Well, for example, Goblin Guide would be great here because as we can see in the hand of the Grixis Death Shadow player, just fetch lands. So for removal, he would have to either fetch for a shock land and play it untapped, or he would have to fetch for a basic land, for example, to cast Fatal Bush. But then the access to the mana would be much worse.
Yeah, so we just saw the burn player keep here on 6, keep his scry on the top. He doesn't have a Goblin Guide, but he does have a Monastery Swift Spear instead, which is going to knock the Grixis Death Shadow player down to 19 already on the first turn.
So the Grixis Death Shadow player plays Scalding Dance and doesn't fetch. So as I said, maybe he's waiting and seeing what's going on to just fetch slowly, avoiding a lot of damage.
Yeah, so here, turn 2 by the Perm player, we just see an attack and a pass with the Swift Spear. No spell cast here to trigger the prowess before damage. What do you make of that?
Yeah, because he doesn't want to get the opponent too low too soon to deploy Death Shadows and start swinging back at the burn player.
So how do you balance it? Do you want to get your opponent? You want to make your opponent get himself actively down to 13, then you start attacking? Or what is the exact way you want to proceed with that?
This strongly depends on the cards you have in hand. For example, if you have a lot of 1-mana spells like Lightning Bolts, Lava Spikes, or even 2-mana spells, Card Crack, Lightning Helix, the more 1-mana spells you have, the more things you can play in one turn. So you can wait a little bit, just bump him down a little bit, and then end of turn, 6 damage, and then in your turn you're like 9 damage and you win the game.
Yeah, and so here, what we're seeing is the Grixis Death Shadow player making no play, just passing the turn, and the Burn player fetching here on end step. So what the Grixis Death Shadow player is access to a lot of cards, but just like you've been saying, there are a couple of copies of Death Shadow, and you don't want, with the Grixis Death Shadow player, you probably don't want to damage yourself too much again at this point, so you're just keeping those in hand and kind of play a bit of a wait and see game.
Yes, this is true. Now the Grixis Death Shadow player just waits for the Burn player to start throwing spells at his face and then will react to it. This kind of play allows the Grixis Death Shadow player to search for tapped Chucklands to develop his mana base.
Especially in catching access to 3 cards here is important. We just saw the Grixis Death Shadow here play. Our opponent cast Monastery Frisbee at a gesture, signaling the passing of power. He was so quick that Grixis Death Shadow player already knew there was nothing going to happen. Just take 1 damage. I always take 1 damage here. Just try, like you said, develop the mana base, have access to all the 3 Grixis cards at this point.
Yes, but I think I don't see another land in the hand of the Grixis Death Shadow player.
We're seeing a copy of Corrective Brutality though here at the very front of the Grixis Death Shadow's player hand. Like we were talking about in Cyberpunk. That card's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, because currently he might not be able to kill the Monastery Swift Spear, but what he could do is deploy a card of the opponent's hand.
But we actually see him discarding Gurmuk Anger to the Swift Spear. He's not actually targeting the Swift Spear to the Corrective Brutality. I'm sorry about that. He's actually choosing the 2 other modes, the Drain and the Dress effect.
So you see response Lightning Helix. So the Swift Spear gets a trigger.
There is a trigger here, so maybe the Swift Spear was targeted. But I'm not sure if like I'm saying, if I were the Grixis Death Shadow player here, I would not target the Swift Spear. So maybe he just has the habit of representing the prowess trigger with this die here.
We will see on the life total soon.
But what definitely was chosen here is the Dress effect. We got 2 copies of Lava Spire and the Path to Exile. That's an easy take of the Path to Exile, isn't it?
Well, the Grixis Death Shadow player is only on
12 so
life.
you think that the life total might matter more than getting rid of any threat that you might deploy?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, he actually targeted the Monastery Swift Spear. No, he did not.
The Monastery
Swift
Swift
Spear
was not targeted. The Grixis Death Shadow player made what we consider to be the right play here, which was just a train because it's too risky. There will always be a spell to trigger prowess here if your burn opponent just passes with like 2 lands untapped. It's not going to happen today at nothing.
That is true, but now the Death Shadow player is on friendly left with
no third land drop again, but a copy of Serum Visions to start the turn for the Death Shadow player here.
Oh, and there it is. Polluted Delta, and on top
we got a Thoughtseize, which was left in, and another copy of Serum Visions, if I saw that correctly.
I'm not quite sure about this, but Serum Visions would be okay on the top. I don't think the Grixis Death Shadow.
Yeah, but that's definitely a copy of Lowwind Thoughtseize here, which I probably would not really want in this situation.
Maybe, just maybe, he wants to reduce his life total by quite some time in one turn, where he has Disruption, do not die from spells from his opponent. Oh, okay. Here we see a fetch, so everything gets shuffled, so it doesn't.
So the Scry didn't actually do anything because the Grixis Death Shadow player needs the third land right now, and the only way of access to that third land drop is that fetch land is in his hand. So the Scry doesn't matter. You can put them anywhere. He knew already he was going to shuffle because he needs those 2 mana to play some other spells this turn.
Yes, but what will he play? If he plays the Grixis Death Shadow, it will only be a 3/3, and Stubborn Denial won't be active.
We saw some other cards here in the Burn player's hand. I think because he discarded the Angler, he has an access to another Delve Thread even. So he might play a spell and then the Delve Thread.
Okay.
So yeah. No, we just see the Delve Thread with the Stubborn Denial up. This is sweet because we got everybody's favorite zombie fish here playing. A 5/5 Gurmag Angler, big mouth and a big body.
Yes, what a big turn for the Grixis Death Shadow player, with 1 threat on the board, protection in form of Stubborn Denial up, and the Death Shadow already waiting for the burn player.
And the thing is, we know the burn player has the path to exile. And this is the situation with burn players. He didn't take my path to exile, I just play it. And if I'm the burn player, I'm already like, I know this is getting stopped. It's getting stopped every single time ever. And you still got to play it.
Yes, because the Grixis Death Shadow player played it exactly like he wanted to have mana open.
Exactly. The Grixis Death Shadow player had to choose to set up this nice sequence, and the burn player didn't have anything he could do. Because if he doesn't play the Path to Exile, the Swift Speed doesn't do anything, and he's not pressuring any additional damage. Maybe the Grixis Death Shadow player might be bluffing, because they don't have access to it.
So, thought score from the Grixis Death Shadow player?
Yeah, milling another copy of Thought Scour and the Serum Visions, and drawing another land here.
Yes. So attack from Gurmag Angler.
Exactly, attack from Gurmag Angler already puts down the burn player to 15. So what we're seeing here is we'll see some Death Shadows being played here, and having those back as potential blockers while already trying to turn the corner quickly here.
But what do you think? Will he play the Black Crypt right now, or?
I would play it tapped. Here. I think that's the safest way, because the burn player still has 2 cards in hand in your 10. I would play it tapped because you might need access to more mana with that copy of Snapcaster Mage, but you might also, again, like we saw in the game before, not play it at all. Which is interesting here, because it's very counterintuitive, but it works out well in these games. You don't play your land at all, because you're not sure yet whether the game state the turn after will allow you to play tapped or untapped, and you rather risk not playing the tapped land and having access to less mana the turn after if you draw another land. To have that flexibility of the life total, which is kind of amazing. You don't see that in Magic quite often, do you?
No, you don't see that. But on the other hand, he already has mana for Snapcaster Mage, and maybe he wants to make an all-out attack with Snapcaster Protection, or just waiting for the right moment to lose his the 2 life to make the Death Shadow Spear and swing for the win.
We also see another copy of Gorgon's Command here as well, which is a removal spell. And now we see that with the Grixis Death Shadow player tapped out, Lightning Bolt by the burn player target, it's one of those 3/3 Death Shadows, which goes to the graveyard and grows the Swift Speed by 1 thanks to the Prowess trigger. And we have to see if we have an answer to the other Death Shadow here. The Swift Spear actually can get in for at least 3 damage. So that might be an apt for the burn player to still turn it around here, even though the Death Shadow player has put a few creatures on the board. But we just see a pass here.
Yes, we saw a pass here because maybe the burn player can't the Grixis Death Shadow player not low enough. So on a backswing with Gurmag Angler and Death Shadow, he would be dead.
Also, if he didn't have another answer for the second Death Shadow, there would still be no attack, because the Swift Spear was a 2/3 while the Death Shadow was a 3/3. So what we can deduce here is that the burn player's hand does not have another direct 3 damage spell in hand, which also means that kind of it's not a situation I would like to be in as the burn player here.
So how much damage would be the optimum with 2 cards in the burn player's hand?
So what we can, the most amount of damage with 2 cards, which he wouldn't play here because they wouldn't kill the Shadow, would be 2 Boros Charms, which would be 8. This is the maximum damage he's possibly representing here.
Okay, so but if you would have that, oh, okay, good. he didn't have the mana to play both.
If you had the 2 Boros Charms, you would play 1 end of turn, and then you hope you top deck another burn spell and get lethal next turn. You obviously hope that there's no Stubborn Denier. Snapcaster, Stubborn Deniers, other things, you might have to time that more carefully. But you wouldn't play any of those in your main phase, definitely not.
So a bigger deck there, 5 from the Gunmark Angler and 3 from the Death Shadow.
Do you jump here? Do you just jump the Angler? Or do you think that with your opponent not having played a creature, you might actually be able to get in some crucial few extra points of damage with the Swift Spear on your turn?
Yes, this might be possible, but a removal for the Swift Spear afterwards might also be possible, because as you can see in the Death Shadow player's hand, there's waiting a Colorgan's Command.
Exactly. What would you have done here? Would you have jumped?
No, I don't think so, because it drastically removes your chances of winning.
I totally agree. I think jumping is to play to not lose, but not jumping is to play to win. The play to win situation is like a very low percentage one, but I think the other line just basically gives you no real chance to win here.
I think so too. But we'll see. 3 cards in hand from the burn player.
Because you only won, you would have been at 11, but you still would have been on a very short clock.
Eidolon being deployed.
Yeah, what's Eidolon doing here? So Eidolon, do you care about Eidolon with this board set if you're the Grixis Death Shadow player?
I don't think so, because next turn the burn player is in jump blocking mode actually.
Exactly, and the thing is, I probably think the burn player is actually aiming at jumping with the Eidolon here, because the burn player can't have the Eidolon on the board either, because he still needs to deal damage with spells to the Grixis Death Shadow player himself.
This is true, but the situation here is quite more complex than you would think, because now the burn player is able to reduce his life total just by casting spells. So
the Grixis Death Shadow player might just use the Eidolon as an advantage here, because you can instant speed grow the Shadow through the Eidolon triggers, right?
This is true, but currently it's not even necessary, because of course he drew a fetch land. But
we still see an opt in hand. This opt is just a instant speed +2/+2 to this Death Shadow if he so chooses.
Yes.
Which is pretty sweet, you know. Never had an opt cast and have it just deal 2 additional damage on my creature. But we see a double jump here anyways.
This doesn't look good for the burn player.
No, because he's just dead on the board next turn and needs to deal 10 damage with 3 cards and 4 mana. It's just impossible. We see a couple of Goblin Guide.
Okay.
Which would translate to 2 damage in a best case scenario.
Yeah, which would not be enough, except he would have had 2 Boros Charms and
another mana, which is not happening here, with 2 cards in hand.
For this play, he's missing another land drop.
So we probably just see the burn player passing here, don't we? Because an attack with the Goblin Guy is just not doing anything but, like, you know, quicken his death.
No. But I think we'll see, yes, an opt from the Grixis Death Shadow player, and I will guess that he also plays Cryptic Command.
We see, I don't think there's Cryptic Command played in the Grixis Death Shadow deck that often, but we do have Kolaghan's Command here in hand, and the Handshake. This is over. Grixis Death Shadow just wins here with a Street 2 in a pretty convincing fashion. Is this matchup always that lopsided?
No, I don't think so, because the burn player can play it slow like this, but they can also have a pretty fast start and just overrun you with 1 or 2 small creatures on the ground and a lot of burn spell backup, so you don't even have a chance to win on the backswing.
So we see here with the sideboarding, Grixis Death Shadow player brought in 4 cards, 2 copies of Collective Brutality, the Stubborn Nile you mentioned, also a copy of Team of Battle Rage. What do you think of the copy of Team of Battle Rage in this matchup out of the sideboard? And out came 4 copies of Street Wraith, which obviously are not what you want to be doing here. But what about the the Team of Battle Rage?
The Team of Battle Rage is just there to kill your opponent in 1 turn. Just play it on a big Death Shadow or even on a Tasiku or a Gurmagandla, and you get like 10 damage on the board with maybe some damage before your opponent is dead by now. So it's a good tool for raising a burn player.
Okay, just one last question I've got to these players sideboarding. We saw here from the burn player side, not just all those path for access that you mentioned were effective in this match, we also saw copies of Rest in Peace. Do you like Rest in Peace in this match from the burn player side?
Yes, I kind of do, because if early Rest in Peace in the early Eidolon out there, the Grixis Death Shadow player will take a lot of damage from just playing his spells, and he cannot develop his graveyard anymore because of the Rest in Peace. So his threats are basically down to Death Shadow and Snapcaster Mage.
Okay, and yeah, that was it from us for the night. We got Grixis Death Shadow winning the big Thursday night modern event at Magic Corner Vienna, and we'll hopefully see you back at some time in the future with more live coverage or like recorded coverage with commentary from Magic Corner Vienna. Thank you very much and have a good night.